You probably think your health app is a private little helper, a step counter, sleep tracker, pregnancy planner, or mood journal that lives quietly on your phone. But behind that friendly interface, there's often a different business model. Data. What you tap, when you search, how your heart rate spikes. These signals are valuable, and many app makers don't just store them, they share them. In some cases, that sharing crosses a line into outright sale, where anonymized or aggregated health records end up in the hands of advertisers, data brokers, and analytics firms. According to a consumer privacy nonprofit, health data is now routinely ripe for collection and sale, leaving people underinformed about how sensitive details are traded. This isn't hypothetical. Investigations by major outlets have documented how mental health and telehealth datasets have been packaged and sold, sometimes with disturbing detail, to marketers and data brokers who then repackage those insights for clients. The Washington Post reported firms advertising lists of people with specific diagnoses or behavioral health conditions, and noted the business is legal in much of the U.S., despite obvious privacy risks.
App makers often defend these practices behind two words, anonymized and aggregated. But the academic record cautions that such protections are fragile. A long-standing body of research shows that supposedly de-identified health data can be linked back to real people through re-identification attacks, by cross-referencing location traces, timestamps, or even behavioral patterns with public records and other data sets. One systematic review found high re-identification rates in many real-world tests, underscoring that anonymization is not a bulletproof shield. Regulation doesn't automatically save you either. HIPAA, the law most people associate with medical privacy, applies to healthcare providers, insurers, and their business associates, but many third-party apps sit outside that protective circle. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services explicitly warns that when individuals choose to move their electronic health information to third-party apps, those apps may not be covered by HIPAA and could use the data in ways the user didn't expect. Finally, the technology that helps advertisers and brokers do their work is evolving fast. New AI-driven re-identification techniques and behavioral linkage attacks can reconstruct identities from patterns once thought anonymous, meaning weak anonymization today could become an easy undoing tomorrow. Industry voices and privacy researchers alike are now raising the alarm that the anonymized label too often amounts to wishful thinking.
What most users don't realize is that when you download a health app, you're often signing away far more than a couple of checkboxes. In many cases, you're handing over intimate glimpses of your daily life, your sleep partitions, your heart rate spikes, your workout limbo, your mood swings, and even though the app claims anonymized or aggregated use, multiple expert voices warn that those words can be misleading. According to a blog by Adam Tanner, author of Our Bodies, Our Data, How Companies Make Billions Selling Our Medical Records, the quote, promise of privacy is often more of an illusion than a reality, since technology can re-identify anonymized data by cross-referencing it with publicly available information, end quote. One major factor, the data sharing ecosystem behind many apps. User data is collected, packaged, and then sold, sometimes to advertisers, sometimes to data brokers, sometimes to analytics firms. Because many apps operate outside the strictest healthcare privacy laws, which typically apply to hospitals and insurers, they end up in a regulatory gray zone. For example, a review of mobile health applications found that 23.7% of apps did not provide a complete privacy policy, and many actually exhibited behaviors inconsistent with their stated policies. Then there's the technical vulnerability. Supposedly anonymized health data can be vulnerable to what researchers call linkage attacks or membership inference. Methods that leverage auxiliary data sets and modern AI to re-identify individuals. As one recent paper explained, quote, advances in artificial intelligence, analytics, and online repositories have eroded practical safeguards to privacy attacks in healthcare data. In short, you give permission for an app to measure your heart rate, track your steps, or log your mood. Under the app's policy, you might consent to aggregated, anonymized use of your data. But aggregated often means many users' data bundled together, and anonymized may mean only obvious identifiers are removed. Yet your usage patterns, timing, location, even device fingerprint can still identify you. Your data may then be sold or shared with third parties who use it to build target profiles, cross-link behaviors, or feed AI models, and you might not even know it. Additionally, the label anonymization is widely used, but the process and protection standards vary dramatically. In one blog, the authors argue that true anonymization is difficult, especially when the dataset is large and when other datasets exist that can cross-reference. For a real-world example, consider a user logging reproductive health data in a popular smartphone app. The user may believe the information is private, but if that app bundles many users' logs into a dataset and offers it to an ad tech firm under Anonymous User Insights, the firm might still combine that data with other location timestamps or purchasing records to infer identity or behavior. The user never sees the chain of custody. The anonymous label is the only comfort. What's more, when your health data is exposed or mishandled, the consequences are deeper than a stolen password. Unlike changing a password, you cannot replace your health history or your biometric signature. Medical identifiers may be static, and future harms, discrimination, profiling, may be subtle and long-term.
It's not all bad news. Amid growing public concern, some companies are learning that privacy itself can be a selling point. Health tech brands that emphasize security, transparency, and user control are gaining an edge in a crowded market. Take Apple, for example. The company has repeatedly stated that health data belongs to the user, not to Apple. In a 2023 press release, Apple's Vice President of Health, Dr. Sumbul Desai, explained that, quote, "Privacy is at the core of everything we do," unquote, noting that health data stored in the Health app is encrypted on the device and can only be accessed with the user's passcode, Touch ID, or Face ID. Similarly, the fitness tracking company Garmin has earned praise for its cautious approach to data sharing. Garmin states that it, quote, "does not sell personal data to third parties," unquote, and limits analytics to improve its own services. According to the company's privacy policy, quote, "we never share your health and wellness data with advertisers or insurance companies without your explicit consent," unquote. There are also positive shifts happening across the broader digital health landscape. The Digital Therapeutics Alliance, a nonprofit industry group, advocates for stricter data handling practices among app developers. In its 2024 standards report, the organization emphasized that, quote, "trust in digital health tools depends on transparent privacy practices, data minimization, and consent that is both informed and revocable," unquote. At the same time, governments are responding. The European Union's Digital Services Act and Data Governance Act aim to curb the reckless sharing of sensitive user data. Under the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, health data is classified as special category data, requiring explicit consent for processing and strict limitations on transfer. As European Data Protection Supervisor Wojciech Wiewiórowski noted, there is no such thing as anonymous health data if the dataset is rich enough, a statement that has pushed many app makers toward stronger de-identification and consent frameworks.
Even in the US, regulatory momentum is building. The Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, has begun cracking down on apps that mislead users about how their data is shared. In 2023, the FTC fined the popular fertility tracking app Pre-Mom for sharing users' reproductive health data with third parties despite promising privacy. FTC Chair Lina Khan said the case shows that companies collecting sensitive health information must keep their promises or face consequences. Meanwhile, a handful of smaller startups are rethinking the health data economy altogether. Haven, a privacy-focused health app, uses end-to-end encryption and decentralized storage to ensure that user data never leaves the user's control. Its CEO, Michael O'Connell, said in an interview with TechCrunch that, "We believe the future of health tech isn't about hoarding data, but empowering people to own it." These examples show that responsible innovation is possible. The apps that treat privacy not as a burden but as a feature are the ones building long-term trust. As the conversation shifts, consumers are starting to ask the right questions. Who has my data? What are they doing with it? And can I take it back?
The current debate over health data privacy feels new, but it's actually part of a much older story, one that echoes the early struggles of the internet and social media eras. Each time a new technology emerges, excitement over innovation tends to overshadow questions about what happens to our data. Only after major breaches or scandals do the dangers become visible. A clear parallel can be drawn to the Cambridge Analytica scandal of 2018. Millions of Facebook users had their personal data harvested through seemingly harmless quizzes and apps, only to later learn that their digital profiles had been used to influence elections. As The Guardian's investigative journalist Carol Cadwalder revealed, quote, "What was meant to be innocuous psychological profiling became a political weapon," end quote. Similarly, today's health apps collect what seems like harmless wellness data, but in the wrong hands, that information can be used to target ads, predict vulnerabilities, or even influence consumer behavior. We've seen this cycle before in other industries too. In the early 2010s, mobile apps like MyFitnessPal and Strava were praised for innovation, but both later faced backlash over massive data leaks. In 2018, Strava's public heat map feature inadvertently exposed secret military bases by mapping soldiers' running routes. As the Washington Post from 2018 noted, quote, "The data wasn't hacked, it was volunteered," end quote. That same pattern, users trusting apps, apps oversharing data, and consequences emerging later, continues today in the health tech space. Before that, in the early 2000s, pharmaceutical marketing companies began quietly buying patient prescription data from pharmacies and insurers. That practice was challenged in Sorrell v. IMS Health Inc. 2011, where the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that companies could legally sell anonymized prescription information. Privacy advocates argued that the data could easily be re-identified and misused, while industry leaders framed it as free speech. As Harvard researcher LaTanya Sweeney later wrote, quote, "We underestimated how easily anonymized medical records could be traced back to individuals," end quote. Even outside healthcare, the pattern is familiar. Early adoption, blind trust, revelation of misuse, then a wave of regulation. The dot-com boom of the 1990s brought similar optimism about free digital services. Back then, users were thrilled to get email accounts and chat platforms without realizing that their personal information was the real product. As technology ethicist Shoshana Zuboff famously described in The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, quote, "Google realized that users' data was more valuable than the services themselves," end quote. The same economic logic now drives many health apps. The app is free or low cost, but the business model depends on monetizing user data. The only difference is the sensitivity of what's being sold. In past decades, your browsing habits might have been the commodity. Today, it's your fertility cycle, glucose levels, and heart rate. And just like the tech giants of the 2000s, many health app companies justify this by claiming it's for personalization, offering you better recommendations, tailored plans, or smarter insights. Yet, as we learned from the social media age, personalization and surveillance are often two sides of the same coin.
So where does this leave us? Your phone, your watch, even your sleep tracker, all of them are quietly collecting what could be the most intimate map of who you are. Your body's rhythm, your habits, your fears.
And while these insights can help you live better, they can also become currency in a digital economy that never sleeps. According to Mozilla's Privacy Not Included project, which reviews privacy practices of popular apps, over 80% of health and fitness apps failed to meet minimum security standards or share data with third parties without clear consent. Lead researcher Jen Kaltrider noted that many apps collect far more personal information than necessary, and it's often unclear how that data is being used or shared. This is the paradox of modern health tech. Tools designed to empower us can also quietly exploit us. Just as the early internet revolutionized communication but birthed surveillance capitalism, the digital health revolution risks turning our bodies into data streams. And the language that makes it sound safe, like anonymized, aggregated, for research, can easily obscure the truth. But awareness is growing. Regulators are finally paying attention. Journalists are exposing weak privacy policies, and users are demanding control. As the World Health Organization emphasized in its 2024 guidance on digital health data governance, trust is the currency of digital health. Once lost, it is almost impossible to regain. That means the future of health apps doesn't just depend on better algorithms. It depends on ethics. Developers must treat privacy not as a legal checkbox, but as a design principle. Encryption, transparency, user consent, and minimal data collection shouldn't be optional extras. They should be the foundation. For users, it's about informed choices. Reading the privacy policy before downloading, avoiding apps that ask for unnecessary permissions, and choosing platforms with clear, accountable practices. Ultimately, technology doesn't decide the future. People do. If users, regulators, and developers collectively demand a more respectful digital health ecosystem, the promise of health technology can be fulfilled without sacrificing privacy. But if we don't, we may find ourselves living in a world where every heartbeat is for sale.